Echoes Hue. Audio Productions. Smooth, sweet sounds. Echoes Hue Audio Productions proudly presents a J.S. Mensah audio work.
Hi everybody, and welcome to my brand new podcast, Would You Adam and Eve It, with me, Del McCamley. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hue Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be talking about issues that affect us all on a national, local and global level. As the famous Blues Brothers once said, issues that affect you, me, them, everybody. Because everybody needs somebody. Somebody to love, miss and kiss and keep you all clued up as just what the hell is going on out there. Because if I don't tell you, then nobody will. Definitely not any of our competitors. So sit back, kick back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka. Oh, glass of whiskey, glass of vodka? What the hell? Who starts drinking at this time of the day? What? My producer just said everybody. No, man, that's not true. Not everybody. Anyway, just relax and know that Del is going to get in there and wiggle and jiggle out the workings of just what the heck is going on in that jolly game we call life. You know it makes sense. So stick with me. I'll put you right. I work with vulnerable young people, a lot of them with challenging needs. I also work closely with drug workers. Now, here's a subject that I get very passionate about because it's now a huge problem that can't be ignored. We're going to talk about disposable vapes. I've seen firsthand the mental and physical effects of disposable vapes. I've seen a rapid increase in addiction, leading to violence and early onset of breathing problems. With the government being slow on action against our kids vaping, let me give you some inside info that the government don't want you to know. Vaping is highly addictive, as everyone knows, and companies are deliberately targeting kids. 2 teenagers I'm aware of are now in hospital with clots on their lungs through vaping. Vaping is causing domestic violence in families, with teenagers arguing and stealing at home to pay for their addiction, leading to parents buying vapes for their children just to shut them up. Vaping is increasing the robberies and stabbings on the street, with children robbing other children for their vapes. I'm out there and seeing it and getting the reports. This is a major epidemic, and unless its action is taken now, it'll be too late. Under current legislation, it's illegal to sell vapes to underage children. This doesn't deter unscrupulous shopkeepers from selling them. That means there's children as young as 10 are walking around with an illegal, highly addictive drug sticking out their mouths and nobody stops it or does anything about it. Years ago, if you'd seen a 10-year-old walking around with a cigarette in his mouth, you'd have been shocked. Now it's a commonplace thing to see a child puffing on a vape. Under new legislation, students can't be excluded from school anymore for vaping, which basically is encouraging our young people to become addicts as young as 10. Vaping comes in all flavours, or vapes come in all flavours now, to entice our young people to buy them. God knows what that means for future generations. This is serious. This is appalling. This is heading towards a society that doesn't seem concerned about the mental and physical well-being of our children. Vapes contain cancer-causing chemicals you might not know, such as formaldehyde. Vaping has been linked with emphysema and decreases the production of antiviral protein, SPLUNC1, increasing the risk of respiratory infections. Vapes can also stop DNA repair mechanisms. Just think about that as our kids are growing up. In a study by the American Heart Association, anxiety was 20% more prevalent in vapers, and 50% of vapers showed symptoms of depression. Around 90% of vapes are made in China, with many of the factories lacking quality control. This results in vapes containing harmful products, in some instances containing spice, which is a drug that causes hallucinations. For those of you not up on these sort of things, and why should ya? Spice is a synthetic cannabinoid that's supposed to have the same effects as cannabis. The effects of taking it are dizziness, paralysis, heart palpitations, paranoia, suicidal thoughts, psychosis and seizures. Let me just digress for a second and tell you a story. So one of the students in my school had a disposable vape. He was walking down the high street and it had spice in, which he didn't know. It was illegal. He collapsed on the pavement and the ambulance was called. When he woke up and told me 2 days later when he came back into our unit, he told me the story of what had happened. He said, Del, I was walking along. He said, I was puffing on this vape. He said, and all time stood still. The birds stopped flying in the sky. Buses stopped. People stopped. I was the only one moving in the street. Even the clouds stopped moving. He said, so it started freaking me out. And what I decided to do was lie down and go to sleep until it all blew over, until it all went away. Basically, what really happened was he was walking along the street. He's puffed a vape loaded with spice and he's collapsed. So this is what it's doing. This is the dangers. The dangers of vaping regarding our young people are too numerous to list here, but the long-term effects are very real. Perhaps the most alarming is vaping leading to EVALI, which is spelled EVALI, which is severe lung disease caused by vaping, with 2,051 cases recorded in the US and 39 deaths. Someone in power is making money on this. You don't need to be a genius to know that. That's why it's not being stopped. I'm being serious here. We need to work together to eradicate this problem. How do we do that? Well, we can start by implementing a complete ban on disposable vapes. That means stopping the imports of disposable vapes to the UK and working to target shopkeepers that sell vapes to children with severe penalties immediately before we have a future generation that will suffer premature health problems and death. And finally, it could lead to young people being seriously hurt or murdered who are stealing off unruly shopkeepers who would think nothing of finding these kids and hurting them. These are the stories I'm being told. These are the stories that are coming to me from the drug workers that I work with. This is a serious problem and this is out there. I'm out there and seeing it and getting the reports all the time. Vapes are also loaded with masses of harmful ingredients containing in excess of 2,000 different chemicals. Although the thing itself is called a vape, suggesting a harmless vapour that flumes from the tip of these devices, it's actually an aerosol. This aerosol contains minute particles of liquid, hence e-liquids, that hover and hang in the air for anyone to breathe in that happens to be in the same room or passing by. That's just about anyone, really. Anyone who doesn't want to participate. Well, tough, really. And what about those health agencies with the UK government? Those defenders of propriety and decency? What would they have us believe? That vaping is a healthy alternative to smoking, just bursting with right as rain, fit as a flea, God bless your governor goodness. Going as far as to tell you that e-cigarettes are 95% safer than your average coffin nail. Well, that's all very well and good. But then you go and market them and advertise them and produce them in lovely kiddie flavours such as juicy blueberry, watermelon, blueberry cotton candy, chocolate and raspberry tangerine. Roll up, come and suck your scrummy flavours. The only thing is, and here's the blooming rub, is that vapes still contain nicotine. Granted, it's the nicotine that's been extracted from tobacco, but that doesn't make it any less of a highly addictive, noxious substance. one that raises your blood pressure, your heart rate and your adrenaline levels and can addle your brain with so much rubbish that it doesn't develop properly. When are we going to learn not to trust a blooming word governing bodies and multi-mega corporations feed us? Haven't recent scandals and misrepresentations of justice taught us a valuable lesson? I mean, let's wake up, people. Vapes contain something called propylene glycol, which gives the aerosol its misty appearance when it's exhaled. This same yummy substance also contributes to respiratory irritation and is the same stuff found in paint solvents. There's also things with cute names, like acrolein, often used as an herbicide, which, for those who don't know, is used as a weed killer, and other chemical compounds, such as diacetyl, I think that's pronounced, which damages and scars the lungs' air sacs. Still fancy one of those delicious pink lemonades? Of course you do. You're addicted. To top it all off, the marshmallow and jam topping on this delectable little tube of joy is that vapes also have both acetaldehyde, or it's pronounced acetaldehyde, and formaldehyde, which cause cancer, folks. The main psychological effects of sticking these things in your gob and quaffing them for all you're worth is nicotine addiction, mood disorders, and lowered impulse control. And that's just for starters. Young people who have never previously smoked anything in their lives are more likely to become smokers when they're older. There's more. Disposable vapes cause harm to the environment because when you toss them away, and I can only imagine you're going to do that if you're one of those unfortunate hapless individuals who's sucking on these things all day, they leach all those glorious chemicals into the soil. All those heavenly plastics and toxic compounds. Vapes aren't recycled once thrown away. Instead, they're pulled into landfills, whereupon their toxic metals corrode, poisoning your ecosystems and water supply. Environmentalists, take note. And don't think that lobbing them into your wheelie bins outside your house is going to make anything any better, because all you're doing is adding to the risk of highly flammable lithium batteries starting fires when crushed inside refuse lorries. Let's have a look at some of the other benefits to vaping, shall we? And let's not forget the real crux of this subject is disposable vaping by our young people. When you vape, you intensify cell death inside your body. In fact, cell death occurs 5 times as often when vaping without nicotine and 10 times as much with nicotine. Vaping dehydrates your airways and can cause an increase in thick amounts of mucus. Lovely. Studies have shown that vaping can be linked with emphysema. For those of you out there not familiar with that term, it means that your lungs' air sacs are ruined to such an extent that gas exchanges in and out of the organ is severely shrunk down. In other words, you have trouble breathing. Vaping causes long-term infections, even though research is still ongoing, but what we do know is that it increases the production of something called, in scientific terms, SPLUNC1, SPLUNC1. That's an antiviral protein that whacks up your chances of respiratory infections. In the mildest of possible scenarios, this means you'll catch a cold quicker than most people. In the worst case scenario, well, use your imagination. Vaping causes small airway obstructions, meaning that you're more likely to develop asthma-like problems. The e-liquid in vapes is loaded with oily substances, causing fatty immune cells called macrophages, which are lipid-filled cells, which in turn could lead to inflammation. Vaping can cause your DNA repair mechanisms to stop working properly, which leads to serious damage with that system. Vaping also causes something, as I said earlier, called EVALI. It's spelled EVALI. Now, EVALI is a severe lung disease caused by e-cigarettes and goes by other names such as vaping use-associated lung injury. EVALI shows up as a hazy patch on your lungs at any chest x-ray, which prompts the sufferer to have shortness of breath and, the problems with breathing yet again. Hey, major news flash for you people. You need to be able to breathe. EVALI also brings on fever and chest pain. This divine symptom usually springs up pretty quickly once you start vaping, turning pretty crummy after a long while. 90% of all vapers who get EVALI end up in hospital. According to Cancer Research UK, there is no good evidence that legal e-cigarettes either cause cancer or are linked to cases of EVALI. That's probably right, and it's a huge probably. But the point I'm trying to make is that kids, by the very fact that they're underage, aren't buying legal vapes. In some cases, as I said before, it could mean death. Our young people under the age of 35 are thought to be more at risk of developing it, with scientists only just recognise it as a side effect of vaping. I'm talking about heavily yet again. The aerosol inside vapes changes the expression of your non-coding RNA molecules without altering the DNA sequencing in your body. Non-coding RNA works to grow and enhance brain activity. Add the possibility of spice here, and we're talking Walking Dead territory. The problem is most vaping companies try to hide a lot of other facts from us, especially when the marketing towards our young people is concerned. The packaging on these cigarettes don't tell us the full story. What they don't tell you is that research has shown that around half of the labels on vape packaging displays levels that don't match the contents. It's basically false advertising, lying by omission to us about the whole toxic waste we're sucking into our bodies. What they don't tell you, contrary to popular belief, or if you want to call it like it is, utter nonsense, inhaling secondhand aerosol from someone vaping near you is very much linked to shortness of breath in others. In other words, if you're breathing in the aerosol emissions from somebody else's vape, then you're likely to breathe it in. For somebody like me, who had throat cancer 5 years ago, that's no joke. What I don't tell you is that using vapes more than 5 times a week, and at least for 3 months, is more than enough to stop your blood vessels from working properly, which could lead to cardiovascular disease, resulting in a possible heart attack. Slam, dump, wham, straight in your chest, turning blue, fall to the curb, gone. What I don't tell you is that in a study by the American Heart Association, the risk of increased anxiety is 20% more likely if you vape. 50% of young people who vape suffered from depression as opposed to 25% of those who didn't vape. What I don't tell you is that, as mentioned before, not all the ingredients present in your average run-of-the-mill vape are labelled. The cunning little devils fail to list the harmful chemicals that are produced during the heating process and come to life when you stick one of these pleasure sticks in your gob. Vapes were created by a Chinese pharmacist who created these tubular beasties to remove the smoke from the act of smoking. By 2007, vapes had entered the global market, and that was when the good old World Health Organization started making noises about the concerns around them. 2010 was the year that vapes gained popularity around the world, with people that were using them as a surrogate for smoking becoming heavily addicted. But it's in 2014 that unscrupulous companies started investing in the adolescent market, running out a host of different flavours and colours to make our kids' eyes go a-popping with pleasure. The term vaping also came into play at roughly the same time. The main thing that concerns me with all this is that when our kids are buying or robbing these things, most of the time, we don't have a blooming clue as to where or how they're being made. A vast amount of vapes, around 90%, are made in China by companies owned by a wheeler dealer called Zhou Xinwei. God bless his cotton socks, who's managed to rake in profits of $45 billion through mass addiction. From China, millions of vapes are shipped to both the UK and US. The snag is that loads of these factories of misery don't have any semblance of quality control, which means that thousands of harmful chemicals are floating around inside them, which means eventually that's got to flow straight into your system. This results in tons of vapes being stuffed full of wholesome goodies like toxic metals, nickel and chromium. Imagine spraying your lungs with harmful metals, because that's what you're doing. What's the reason for the quality control in all these factories being so poor? Well, it's simple. As vapes don't contain tobacco, the Chinese Tobacco Authority, which regulates cigarettes, doesn't monitor the place that makes vapes. You see? A piece of cake, a DOS, a snap, a doodle, a piece of old tackle. Kids' stuff. And that's the problem. It's our kids that are smoking them. Rishi Sunak has pledged to try to restrict flavoured vapes that are aimed at our kids. He's also pledged to make sure that vapes come in plainer packaging so that young people don't go all gooey and sparkly-eyed at all those bright and pretty colours that highlight candy or fruit flavours. Yeah, right, that'll work. The only thing currently that you have the power to do when you catch a kid under the age of 18 vaping, is to confiscate the vape. According to government guidelines, this not only serves as a deterrent, but removes the temptation to continue vaping. I'm going to march right down to Downing Street and plonk a blooming great Oxford English dictionary on the doorstep with the word addiction highlighted with a thick Sharpie pen. My question is, with all the grisly and nightmarish information I've just bombarded you with, why are the yo-yos in power waiting until 2025 to even think about drawing up a review on vaping? They must surely know about all the stuff I've been banging on about, all the dreadful, unthinkable, unspeakable perils of vaping and the long-term effects on our kids. I'm no biologist or chemical fountain of wisdom. I've researched it and seen it. Anyone can do that. They must know the same things I do. Maybe it's the fact that, according to the UK Vaping Industry Association, our government makes a revenue of £300 million a year through vapes. We need a complete ban now. Not in a few months, not in a year, now. You'll be pleased to know that I haven't been resting on my laurels with this one. No, I wasn't having any of it. Not the lame excuses, not the pitiful Palatians covering up the issues like a bleeding sticky plaster. So I decided to write to my local MP. But then my gorgeous wife, who's a nurse, after hearing me gripe and groan and moaning about this issue, decided to do it herself and got a reply from none other than Sir Iain Duncan Smith. So he put, "Dear Ellie McCamley, thank you for your recent email regarding vaping. I understand your concerns about the negative impact this will have on children's health. Therefore, I am writing to Victoria Atkins, the Secretary of State to the Department for Health and Social Care, asking her to respond to the matter you have raised. I will come back to you as soon as I receive a reply." He goes on to say, while e-cigarettes are not risk-free, the government supports the use of e-cigarettes as a means to stop adult smoking and contributing towards the goal of creating the first smoke-free generation. If we move down, I'm not going to read you the whole thing. He said, however, it is deeply worrying that the number of children using vapes has tripled in the past 3 years, with 20.5% of children having tried vaping in 2023. Well, that's interesting because I spoke to a drugs worker today in my profession and he told me the percentage is way higher than that. But I'm not going to quote you the figure. He said 20.5% was quite a liberal quote, actually. He goes on to say, as my colleague Andrea Leadsom, the Minister for Public Health, has stated, it is completely unacceptable when businesses knowingly and deliberately encourage children to use a product that was designed for adults to quit smoking. He also goes on to say, responding to the use in the number of children vaping, the government has introduced the Tobacco and Vapes Bill, which will give the Health Secretary new powers to restrict flavours and packaging specifically marketed at children and how vapes are displayed in shops. In addition, Trade and Standards officers will be able to levy on the spot fines to tackle underage tobacco and vape sales. Okay, so that was the message from the Sir Iain Duncan Smith. He's probably got good intentions and he's probably making steps to, or using steps to wipe this problem out. We'll see. I'll keep you updated. But the most sickening thing I'm going to end with is something I've researched on this whole issue. It's a statement within the UK Vaping Industry Association by John Dunn, Director General of the UK Vaping Industry Association, who says, in little over a decade, vaping has grown from very much a cottage industry to one of the most fastest growing sectors. More people than ever are vaping, and by all measures, this is a true British success story. No wonder some of the world's biggest retail brands are now extolling the virtues of vaping as a force for good when it comes to harm reduction. I'll leave you with the final thought on that subject. I've been Del McCamley, and this has been Would You Adam and Eve It? Don't be shy. Tune in for next time. See ya!
Thanks for listening to an Echoes Hue audio productions project. Smooth, sweet sounds. Keep up to date with content from Echoes Hue Audio Productions by following us on TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow, like and comment. Would You Adam and Eve It is written and presented by Del McCamley. The podcast is directed and produced by J.S. Mensah. Our theme music is by Oleg Mazur.